What is genuine mahogany? Can it come from different countries? Can it be different species of wood? Is the name mahogany sometimes misused or misrepresented? Today's show, we look at this king of tonewoods, its history, where it came from, and what is the real stuff.
I could just play this thing all day long.
Well, the guitar of that piece, that bit of music.
3 times, good.
I couldn't play that all day long. I'd pass out.
Some people...
It was like a jig on fast forward.
We're generally a little bit more gentle than that with the guitars.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It was like, I don't know, a waltz on fast forward. Or like a...
What inspired you to play in 3 time?
I don't know.
I was keeping up.
I think I was thinking about speedboat programs in Ireland. Bit random.
Today's show is all about mahogany.
It certainly is. We've got some... we have
deeper dive, I think.
Deeper dive. Can be misrepresented. It can be misused. The word, I mean, not the wood. Mm-hmm. I think the word can be a little misused sometimes, or maybe our understanding of what mahogany is can be. So we thought we'd try and bring a bit of sense, hopefully some history, a little bit of history, because it's fascinating.
You have been doing some serious research into this. I am very impressed.
Some of it's a bit odd. It's one of those things, though, we sometimes pick topics for an episode.
Yeah.
And sometimes we turn up and we can talk about them all day long, and sometimes, you want to do a good job. And I did do some reading about mahogany, and actually I stopped reading about mahogany and it became like history and movement of people and all that sort of stuff. And then you think, bloody hell, all of this trade and some dodgy history around that, I mean, it's got to be said. And also our complete neglect of the value of wood over the past few hundred years, and us running out of wood really comes to light when you research mahogany, because it was there wasn't a lot of forward thinking going on in the early days, put it that way. But we are talking about a long time ago, so
possibly didn't even know what they were doing. They probably didn't realise that particular.
I think it was all driven by money.
Oh, sure.
As often is, greed, and get those trees out of the way, we'll plant something else.
Yeah.
And use those for some nice cabinets. I think what we can say is people go on about genuine mahogany. So when you see guitars, you will see mahogany back and sides, or you'll see what we often use in our Yaris, you'll see us using, Honduran mahogany, or just the word mahogany. In our other price points, we have African mahogany and all that sort of stuff. Whether it's genuine, what makes wood genuine or not, I mean, it's been here millions of years, it's kind of genuine, whatever it is. Mahogany, genuine mahogany, or the term genuine mahogany, is referred to the wood that was first called that name. And that name has a certain species and a certain genus, and almost the marketing name came a lot later. One thing we know for sure is genuine mahogany these days has to come from the Americas or the Caribbean. That's it.
So we're talking about Honduran mahogany, we're talking about Mexican mahogany, and what is now Cuban mahogany, but wouldn't have been Cuban mahogany originally, would have been Jamaican mahogany, I think you were telling me, right?
Yes. So those terms have become commonly used, but they're just commonly used. There's nobody saying this links to any specific etymology. Is that the right word? So like Swetenia is the genus of real mahogany, and then there are 3 species underneath that. So when we talk about a genus, it's like a hierarchy of organisms, I think, and then you have different versions of that, as you know, in the flora and fauna and animal world. And Swetenia, is or Swetenia, somebody can tell me how to pronounce it correctly. So Swetenia macrophylla is Honduras or Honduran mahogany.
Yeah.
Central America. Mm-hmm. Then there's Swetenia mahogany, spelt with an I.
With an I, which is the Cuban?
But let's say Caribbean.
Right? Yeah.
And then there's Swetenia humilis, which is these days known as Mexican. And then it does grow in Central America as well, or did. The first known mahogany to be exported from the Americas or the Caribbean, in my knowledge and my research, was from Jamaica. And there was lots of Jamaican mahogany. And all of that mahogany was cut down to make way for sugarcane, for plantations, because sugar was far more
valuable
and made more money than logs. So it's like, let's cut this down. But obviously then they realized this mahogany wood's great. It's like really stable, looks pretty. So they shipped it all back to Europe. This is in the 1600s. Cabinet makers loved it because it's such a stable, pretty, gorgeous wood. Mm-hmm. Actually, I believe by early 1700s or mid 1700s, the mahogany in Jamaica and probably lots of other parts of the Caribbean, it also grew in the Bahamas and Cuba, had already gone, or virtually gone, unless you went up into the higher sort of mountainous areas. So I think this is interesting because all of a sudden we've got Swetenia mahogany, which was Caribbean, which is the stuff that came over to mainly Europe in the 1700s, was completely deforested. So why did we have Swetenia macrophylla, which is Honduras mahogany, in guitar making? Because there wasn't any of the other stuff left by then. So once us good old Europeans had done lots of fighting, and we took, when I say we, I say the British, sorry about that, took or won Jamaica from the Spanish, I think in 1725 or 35, maybe earlier.
I don't know, but it's around about that time, yeah.
And by that time, you know, it was probably earlier, sorry, by that time the wood had gone, but we knew there was some in, the loggers had a great trade by this time.
Yeah.
Mahogany was being shipped around the world. They started taking Honduran mahogany from Belize and Honduras and Guatemala and those places and shipping it through Jamaica because that's where all the processing goes, and they kept it going. But by this time, we're talking about getting up in the 1800s, and then that Honduras or Swetenia macrophylla was going up north into North America.
So are you saying that original, that mahogany, that Swetenia mahogany, was wiped out entirely?
I don't know if it was completely wiped out, but certainly in the Caribbean, I think it was all cut down for plantation. Only recently, like really, really recently, has Jamaican mahogany samplings have been DNA tested to be true Jamaican mahogany, and it's just now being started to be planted again in Jamaica.
Wonderful. So
it is coming back. So for us, what we call in our industry is Honduran mahogany. That's the marketing, what's become the marketing term for the high value mahogany that we use in guitars.
Of course.
And yes, because all the rest of it being cut down. And we'll get into other types of mahogany and other things that people call mahogany, which really isn't. But I ended up reading a website, I think it was the National Trust for Scotland. And a PhD, a doctor on that site called Dr. Daisha Osborne, she seemed to be incredibly knowledgeable about this stuff. She came up with something which was super interesting. There's a language called Yoruba, which is a West African language. There's a word in that language called Oganwo, or Oganwo, and that is the name of kaya in Yoruba, which is African mahogany. And those enslaved people from Western Africa called these trees in Jamaica Oganwos, which assumes that that word, that mahogany word has derived from, was named by these African people based on the fact that it looked exactly like kaya from West Africa.
Because it is very similar, isn't it?
Very similar. So we say genuine mahogany is genuine mahogany. Whether you believe this or not, it is assumed that the Africans' name, or the name for the original Yoruba name for African mahogany, influenced the name mahogany, which is absolutely fascinating, because now
incredible.
It seems like they named their name for their own mahogany influenced our name for mahogany, which is quite amazing. So we'll get into some pieces of wood here. So we use Honduran mahogany, Sutina macrophylla, and the guitar industry has since
which is this,
the mid 1800s or even earlier. And it's wonderful. It's light. It's resonant, and it's one of the golden sort of tone woods for our instruments. There's a great website that we've talked about several times, and it's called wood-database.com, wood-database.com. And the guy who runs that is called Eric Meyer. And Eric Meyer is a wonderful person. I've never met him, but he's put so much work into wood-database.com. It's absolutely unbelievable. And he has done a diagram, which is, Sam can lay this up, which is very clear of what is deemed as genuine mahogany and what isn't.
Yes, and all the relatable.
There's all sorts of stuff. So basically, we have Honduran, and that can come from Guatemala. I don't know if there's any left in Belize, but certainly these days there is plantation wood in Central America. It's come back round again because it was deforested. Okay. And we've just bought a load of it, and it's great. And the trees are big. They take about 25 to 35 years, depending on I guess weather and soil type and all that sort of stuff. The version of which we use is something called kaya. And kaya, as you will see certainly from this diagram, in our industry has been recognized as African mahogany. And the reason we use kaya is because it looks, grain pattern, color. This one's quite light, but you can get Honduran mahogany, which is really light as well. But the grain pattern, the hardness, the density is very similar to Honduran. And when you tap this, it's got lots of reverberation, and it's got a great woody sort of tone to it. That's why we use it. Obviously, we use Honduran because it's just, whether you say it's a little bit better, somehow it sounds so different, but it's so similar. But then there's other things in the mahogany world which I think it's important to go through. This is Sapele. Sapele is a very, very good tone wood.
Where is Sapele?
So Sapele is from Africa. I believe, somebody may correct me, these are very different. Yeah. Some people call this Sapele in the wood making, and some people call it mahogany. It's not really mahogany, but it's an African wood which has some similarities. It's a completely different genus and species to Kaya and Sutina. The difference between these two woods is Kaya, African mahogany, as I said, is very similar to Honduran. It sounds completely different because this is really hard, much harder. In fact, it's about, not twice as hard, but probably 60 to 70% harder.
Sapele is?
Sapele is.
Okay.
And you can hear that. And I don't know whether, if I do that this way, it it's a completely different tone to its.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm getting there, I'm getting more reverberation from here. You're getting a higher.
I'm getting
higher
a
note.
higher note, a higher pitch.
Higher note
yeah,
from the
without a
split
doubt.
because it's harder.
Yeah.
So, in my knowledge, and I may be wrong, this is dry wood. It's grown above the tropics. This is grown in the tropics. And Honduran is grown in the tropics. And that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
But this is so much like Honduran. It's a drier, the environment that it grows in is completely different. So that's interesting. And somebody may be able to tell us more about that than I know. And then there's a load of other stuff that some people call mahogany, or you might see it written down as mahogany, which isn't. Mm-hmm. And that is, well, sapele isn't. And there's things like akume, which is another African wood that some people will use akume. It's certainly in the guitar world. I've used it before. And, you know, I've seen it kind of mixed up in the mahogany world. You know, it's sometimes.
And what's that like in terms of hardness? Is that harder again?
No, it's not. Akume is softer.
Right.
It's softer than this. And it's actually lighter. And it's from Central Africa. Then we have things like, if you look at Eric's diagram, something that you notice, we have Spanish cedar. Spanish cedar is not a cedar. It's a hardwood. And it comes from South America or Central America, but it's a similar grain pattern. It has that brownish sort of feel to it, but it's not mahogany. And we also have things, I tell you what, I've never used is something called sipo or saipo mahogany, which is actually a little closer, often a sort of related hardwoods. I've never ever used that. But then you have Australian red cedar. You have Philippine mahogany, you have swamp mahogany, Santos mahogany, all this sort of stuff that these have become their marketing names. They're not mahogany.
Are these used in instrument making? Are they still classed as tone woods?
Some are, yeah. And I'm not saying that they're not good tone woods or they're not, they shouldn't be used. But they're not mahogany.
But for certain applications, certain kinds of instruments, then they might be.
For guitars, they can be fine.
Okay.
I'm sure, I've certainly seen Santos mahogany. I've certainly seen that in the guitar world. And it's quite far removed from a species to genuine. So in my mind, in guitar making, there is genuine mahogany, which has also been planted around the world, which makes it even more complicated. So you can buy macrophylla, which is Honduran, in Fiji, because it was transplanted in Fiji decades ago, and apparently it grows very, very well there. I've never tried. I'm trying to get a hold of some at the moment, and that is genuine mahogany, but now it's grown in Fiji. So Swetenia macrophylla is the one, and accepted as a mahogany now is African mahogany, which is kaya, which is that lovely story that the African people that were, forced to log and cut down this stuff, actually probably named it, which I think is a great story.
It is. It's fascinating.
Tonewood wise, it's great. Makes beautiful cabinets. It's so stable. It's so easy to work with. It's the king of woods, in my opinion.
I was just listening to this. This is a Honduran mahogany, right?
It's a neck blank. Honduran mahogany neck blank. Yeah, even that thick, it's got a resonance to it.
Incredible.
But when you cut this stuff, it's lovely to cut. It's lovely to work with. Rosewood's harder. And it's harder to work with, and there's lots of oil in it, where Honduran is just really lovely. Mahogany is just really lovely, and it is very, very stable. So when it goes to making a guitar, one of the reasons these last so long is, when you've got a mahogany neck. Yeah. It's just the quality. It's the king of woods. And if you're interested, there's lots about the history that we haven't got into, but it's certainly really fascinating.
That was great. Thank you very much.
So
enjoyed that.
Tonally, we've talked about tone. It's woody, and it's middly, and
it's mid-focused. It's warm.
That thing there I just played. This sounds brilliant, and you pair it with an Adirondack top, and it's just, to me, that's the pairing. For me, it's better than Brazilian rosewood.
That's quite a statement.
Quite a statement, but I'm going out there. I prefer it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks very much for listening. Hope we shared some good stuff, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks very much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. If you want to watch more videos like this one, click the video on the screen now.